Hello and welcome to another episode of Nothing Definitive. I'm Sam Carlson, and today I want to talk about what it means to wake up. Okay, so you've probably heard, say, the song by Rage Against the Machine, Wake Up, or you've seen The Matrix, and that's the first thing that comes in your mind. Um, or if someone says wake up, you might think of Buddhist monks who have awakened spiritually on the side of a mountain and they see God and they understand the universe. Um, or you might think of conspiracy theorists and the waking up to the corruption around us and the secret world of the Illuminati and stuff like that. Whatever your association, I don't want to talk about it that way. What I want to talk about today is a more general level of what it means to wake up without any specific stipulation that determines the definition. Just a general overview of what it means to wake up. Okay, so waking up in a very general sense simply means to become more aware of reality. And like I said, it's not necessarily of like some specific thing like government corruption or spiritual God and stuff. Being aware of alternate dimensions or something. Just being more aware of your reality, what's going on around you. And this may sound really obvious, or you're like, well, okay, that makes sense. But this is literally like the most complicated, abstract piece of understanding I have ever learned. I'm not sure if there's anything else that I have learned thus far that is more complicated than this single piece of information. And I think the reason is because waking up involves or is comprised of so many different complex components. It's not just like you learn this one thing and now you have awoken and you see reality. No. It's comprised of like tons and tons and tons of really complicated lessons. It is itself comprised of complex complexities or something. And what's interesting is if you can start to grasp all these individual concepts, you start to see how they all interact, and you become better and more intuitive, and all of a sudden one day you've gained all these lessons, and then one day it just clicks, and all of a sudden you just realize, like, I think I'm one of those people that like have woken up. Like I'm really starting to see the patterns in the world, and I'm starting to really understand things at a more fundamental level. It's and like, okay, so one thing that it leads to in my case is this like addiction to knowledge. I've become so, I just had this insatiable hunger for wanting to learn more because I've realized how much complexity is in the world, how everything is so interconnected, and you just want to like unravel all the secrets and know everything. Um, and okay, so here's my example of how you could imagine this, because I wanted to have some sort of visual way that you could put it in your mind. Imagine that there are two types of people, basically. There are people who are awake and aware, really, really highly aware of the world. And then there are those that are sleeping. And that's like the just normal people. And most people reach, say, this upper tier of the sleeping category. Basically, it's responsible, intelligent adults that, they have good jobs. They watch the news. They're very aware of what's going on in the world, but they don't have this really deep understanding. They still ask a lot of questions and have a lot of confusion in regards to understanding things, maybe like politics, like understanding why politicians did the things they did, or why we went into this war, or whatever. Or even on just a more individual level, just understanding interactions, deep interactions with people, and understanding the game that goes on between individuals competing, maybe for a job or something like that. Um, and then there's this upper tier I think that most people reach, and then there's this barrier, or think of it as this really complicated maze that's full of twists and turns, and it's full of challenges, lessons that you can learn. And most people, I think, reach the barrier and they start the maze. They start going along and they start figuring things out, but then they reach really difficult challenges, things that they can't pull themselves to conquer. Or they just get lost in the maze and they can't figure it out, and then they just kind of fall back to this, upper tier of the sleeping category. And I think only a very small percentage of people who are basically in the right place in the right time kind of a mentality, they just happen to figure it out. Um, and I kind of feel like that's what happened to me. Like, I don't feel like I did anything skillfully to kind of get past this barrier. I feel like I literally just got lucky based on my environment. I think I was motivated by depression and things like that, where like I didn't like how things were going in my life, so I was constantly pushed forward internally. And I think I just kind of like persevered through the maze, and I came out on the other side. But I feel like a lot of people, they get in the maze and they end up just dropping out, or they're stuck in the maze forever, and aren't able to cross into that next barrier. Which is unfortunate, because I feel like once you get onto the other side, that's when things really get interesting. When you're on the other side and you've awoken, it's like this whole new level of learning. You get to like unlearn all the bullshit that you've learned in the past and relearn what's really going on. You get to like start to actually see reality for the first time, and it's both disturbing and intriguing at the same time. It's so crazy. Um, I'm just reading my notes really quick to make sure I'm not missing anything in this section. Um, so yeah, I think that covers it. So one of the problems then here is, once you're on the other side, once you're kind of like one of these awoken individuals, it gets very frustrating to live in the world we live in, because you see a lot. You see a lot of the problems. You see a lot of the like flawed rationality that people have, and you get like a song like Rage Against the Machine, Wake Up, where he's screaming at the end, Wake up! And it's so like you can just, it's almost like this desperation in his voice, and it's so, they perfectly capture it. I feel like a lot of people who are awoken feel that way. They want to scream at people, wake up. Like, seriously, there's so much going on around you that you are so, it's just invisible. You literally do not see this whole other world that exists around you because you're distracted. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm placing blame, or like people who are awoken are so much better or anything. I think it's really randomly just luck that people get into it. That's how I feel. But don't necessarily like blame yourself or anything. I don't want to place blame on anyone, because I think it's just depending on your environment and how you grew up and what kind of motivators you have in your life. That's how you end up getting through it. Um, but it is very frustrating, because there's so much, and that's the other thing, is there's so many distractions. There's like, the world has been designed in a way to like distract you from figuring things out. We have stuff like pointless things like Dancing with the Stars, or sports that are like, people get so involved, they spend like hundreds of hours, thousands of hours a year just focused on this like one thing that's ultimately like totally pointless, when they could be learning something really valuable and figuring out the universe. And like when we live in something like the United States, it's almost like it doesn't matter, because we have it so great here. But the problem is that we run into things like, right now we're in a financial crisis. And we're coming up to this fiscal cliff next year, and this could present all sorts of new financial problems. And when people who are awake are like much more prepared for stuff like that, they're very, they're not spending a lot of time just doing kind of pointless and entertainment sort of things. They're learning, and this becomes very valuable. Because they can prepare ahead of time, and they can figure things out, and they're more intuitive, and know how to respond appropriately to things. They have better rationale. There's just like so many abilities and so many things that come along with it that are positive. Of course, there are negative things too. I believe, and I'll address that in future episodes. But for now, just focus on the positive side because I think it's far more positive than it is negative. Okay, so yes, that covers that section. So in the very last bit here, so say you're an intrigued individual and you want to be, part of this uh, group of people that consider themselves awake and very aware of what's going on. How do you get to that point? How do you get to a point where you start recognizing patterns and seeing this invisible world around us that through heightened awareness? And it's very simple yet very difficult, and at the same time it requires a lot of you. It requires diligence and consistent practice, but basically just learn like you've never learned before. Read books, watch YouTube videos, like lectures of people, really smart people talking about stuff. Open your mind. You need to recognize that there is no such thing as a topic that's off limits, and you need to also be totally you need to like destroy your beliefs basically. And I'm gonna have a future video about that too. I wanted to make that one of the very first videos I made, but it's such a hard topic to get across in a way. So I'm working on that one. But you need to like not have beliefs in things where like it affects you how you perceive the world. Don't get discouraged. Don't give up. Just try, persevere, push forward, continue learning, and learn and learn and learn. Watch TED Talks to inspire you. Listen to podcasts with highly intelligent people, or even just listen to stuff like I enjoy listening to like Joe Rogan's podcast. It's entertaining. They talk about all sorts of crazy topics. But the topics are, if you can allow yourself to get into them and have some fun with them, it can actually open your mind up to all sorts of new ideas. Basically anything that bestows upon you a new way of thinking, a new perspective that you've never had before. That is like what you're targeting. You need to start to view life at more angles than what you view it at currently. And just keep trying. I promise that someday it will click, and all these lessons, all the things that you're learning will all start to come together, and it'll just make sense all of a sudden. It's so intriguing. I promise you that you will find it valuable and useful, and it'll just lead to so many better things and so much deeper understanding. So okay, I'm kind of rambling at the end here, so I'll just cut it off and say thank you very much for watching. Stay around for future episodes, and yeah, good luck.